Over the last few years, the performance of pickleball paddles has gotten drastically better. And while performance has gone up, prices have also seemed to go up even more. Some of the most popular brands on the market like Yola and Selkirk are selling paddles for $300 or more. Here's the thing, it costs about $30 to $40 to make a performance pickleball paddle. And while it's totally fine for there to be premium brands that sell at higher prices, what you need to know is that there is a way to do this with the same performance, but at a much lower cost to the consumer. In the past year, for instance, we've seen this with paddles like the Vatic V-Sol and the Rhombus Quanta. Both of these had very good performance at $99 after code. Because of this, these have steadily been two of the most popular paddles on the market. So that enhance, while we do have higher priced paddles in our lineup, we saw this as a challenge. Could we make the best performing budget paddle on the market? This is a question we asked ourselves in the middle of last year, and it started a journey that led to our new line of paddles, the Turbo. Before I get too much into the Turbo though, I wanted to talk about how we transitioned from being YouTube creators into being a paddle brand. I feel like a lot of our subscribers saw this happen, but they didn't really know what was going on behind the scenes. So the first thing that people don't know is that Enhance actually started with products before videos. Our first successful product, the Dinkmaster, is actually what motivated us to start making the videos in the first place. And after a few years of doing this, we hit a crossroads where we were asking ourselves what we were gonna do next. And throughout my time playing pickleball, I'd always been obsessed with paddles, how I could weight them, how I could optimize them for my play style. Even when I was a tennis player, I'd always optimize my rackets, customize them as good as I could so I could play my best. So when we got to this stage, we decided our best bet was to go deep into the paddle market and figure out how to make the best paddles that we possibly could. Once we got going, we hired some engineers, and after about a year, we started to get some pretty good feedback on our paddles. Back to the Turbo though. The goal with the Turbo was simple. We wanted to make the best performing budget paddle on the market. And after about 6 months and a few dozen prototypes, we thought we did it. But at that time, we had just launched the Duo, so we still had more time before we wanted to launch the Turbo. So in that period, we kept iterating even more, went to China, did a rapid prototyping phase, and after this, the Turbo went from being the best budget paddle on the market to being one of the best paddles on the market, period. We actually almost raised the price because of how good the feedback we were getting was. But at the end of the day, we decided that we were gonna stick to the Turbo being a budget line. And let me be clear about the word budget. All budget means is that the paddle is going to sell for $120 or less. After code, the Turbo is going to be $99.99. That doesn't speak to any of the materials. All the materials that we use in the Turbo and everything with the construction is the same as paddles that are well over $200. That's why the performance is the same as well. So now we're gonna get into the performance of the Turbo paddle and how it plays. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I was the main play tester and I'm the one that guided sort of where the paddle went. But at the end of the video, if you want to see an unbiased review, we're going to link a few from independent creators. So now let's talk about why these paddles are such a great option for most players on the market. It starts with the sweet spot. While I'm not the lead designer of paddles, we have engineers for that, I am the lead play tester. And the number one thing I tell my engineers to shoot for when we make any paddle is to maximize the sweet spot. In my opinion, a sweet spot that is smaller is the number one thing about a paddle that makes it worse than another. Think about all the times you hit a ball slightly off center on the paddle and it fell straight into the net. With a paddle like the Turbo, that becomes significantly less likely. Overall, having a bigger sweet spot just gives you more consistency and gives you a little bit more room for air. Looking at the other performance characteristics, with power, we wanted it to be a power paddle, but we didn't want to go over the top. So the Turbo line is what we would call mid-tier power, meaning it's in the power category, but it's not at the very top of the power category. In my opinion, this is the best range for players who want power and want to be able to finish off points, but also want to be able to control their drops and control their dinks. With the maximum power paddles, it becomes a little bit tricky, especially if you're a rec player. In terms of spin, we did everything we could to max out these stats too. Because these paddles naturally have really good dwell, when you hit the ball, it stays on the face longer and it gives you more spin because the paddle essentially grabs the ball more. Add in the fact that we've maxed out the grit under USAP rules, you'll find that these paddles all have elite tier spin. One thing you might have noticed throughout this video is that there's a green version of this paddle and a blue version. The difference between these two colors is that the blue one uses EPP foam in the center and the green one uses MPP foam in the center. And when you look at the x-ray, you'll see that both of these use an identical floating core construction. The only difference is the foam in the center. And all floating core means is that the central stiffer foam is surrounded by a less dense EVA foam around the perimeter of the paddle. This is arguably the best core construction on the market right now, and it's also used by top performing paddles like the Bread and Butter Loco, the Selkirk Boomstick, and the Les Inferno. Keep in mind though, these paddles are all $200 or more. And remember, the EPP Turbo and the MPP Turbo will both be $99.99 after you use code TURBO. So this puts them at least $100 cheaper, if not more, than other options that have similar performance. When you compare EPP to MPP though, the main difference is the sound and the feel. With MPP, you get the maximum hollow feeling and the deepest possible sound, whereas with EPP, you get a slightly denser feel. Here's a sound comparison for reference. Even the EPP Turbo though is pretty hollow. The MPP is just more hollow because it's actually one of the most hollow feeling paddles on the market. Whether you like one or the other is mostly going to be a preference thing. So with the MPP, you're going to get more power on your serves and drives, and you're going to get more dwell time. Whereas with the EPP Turbo, it's going to be a slightly more dense feel, and you're going to get more pop, which will help you enhance battles at the kitchen. I would just go with what you're used to though. If you're used to an MPP paddle, I would go with the MPP Turbo. And if you're used to an EPP paddle, I would get the EPP Turbo. Keep in mind, they're not that different from each other. It's really just a slight difference in feel. So overall, if you want a paddle that has legit top tier performance, that's way cheaper than anything else like it, the Turbo line could be for you. Don't take my word for it though. Now I'm gonna link a few unbiased reviews to go through just how good this paddle actually is.